Hey guys, Design the Crafter here. So I decided I'm gonna do a short video for you on sewing pattern tips and tricks. And I've been using sewing patterns for probably more than 10 years now. Makes me sound old, but I'm not. And along the way, I picked up a lot of ideas, I suppose, or a lot of tips and tricks, basically. And a lot of it was based on trial and error. So yeah, these tips are geared towards before you sew. So just keep this in mind when you're going to purchase a pattern and then when you're actually going to start. So what I have here, number one, always read and reread the pattern instructions until you have a clear picture of each step. That's very important. You have to understand what you're doing. That would make a lot of sense. Um, be 100% sure and confident about what you're doing so that in the end it'll work out a little bit better for you, and you know your project will be awesome. Number two, circle the pattern size on the back after you've measured yourself. Make sure that you always measure yourself before you start a pattern. Always. I have a pattern here. Let me show you. This one is from Simplicity. This is number 2648, 2648, and this is from the Amazing Fit. If you look at the back, you would see that they have all the numbers and the different sizes and all that stuff for you. So make sure that you match those up with your actual bust measurements and hip measurements and waist measurements and whatnot. And they always calculate it based on ease. Now, sometimes I'm inclined to cut the pattern a little smaller because the ease is too much, but in some cases, if the pattern is forgiving, I would rather cut it to the size that I am here. Like, okay, I would be a 44 bust, and they have the finish measurements to be 48.5 inches, so that might actually be a bit big, but it's better for you to definitely cut it bigger and sew it bigger. And then when you're ready, finish and make all your darts and whatnot like that, and any kind of adjustments you would need, because it's easier always to take in than it is to add fabric. Um, the next one, when you're going to buy the fabric and the notions or embellishments or anything, take the pattern along with you. That way you can always be 100% sure that you'll get the right thing. For this one in particular, it asks for a 22-inch zip, a hook and eye, and then it has for the different type of pattern. One has a buckle, one has 2-inch button, and yeah. I guess at the end you can add any other embellishments that you would like. Now we're gonna go on to number 4. Always check to see that your fabric stretches the same or more than the 4-inch rule. Now I have some patterns here. I'm just gonna flip through a couple of them and find one that would, so I can show you. Now if you have a pattern like this one is geared towards stretch fabrics, and at the back of it you're gonna see they're gonna have a little rule here, and it says 4 inches of fabric is supposed to stretch to here. That is extremely important because usually when they design patterns like these, they always do it fitted. So if you have a 44 bust, they may actually cut it, make the pattern 44 inches, or they might make it 43, or they might make it 43 and a half. So it's always important to make sure that your fabric stretches, because that is what this particular pattern was designed for, something that stretches. Right. Okay, and also try to pick the material based on their suggestions, because obviously certain designs would call for a stiffer fabric, or some would be designed for a lighter fabric so that it would drape and whatnot. You're not going to use twill for a pattern that is calling for jersey material, because obviously twill doesn't really stretch, and B, it's not going to fall the same way. So that's very important. Number 5, cut the patterns when you have time to cut the patterns and if you're in the mood. Now, two of those things are not mutually exclusive. They sometimes don't ever happen. Sometimes you have a lot of time, like on weekends, and you're bored and you don't know what to do, but you don't feel like cutting a pattern. When you do find yourself in that situation where you do have time and you're in the mood, really try to get that done because that's very important, you know. And lastly, this is more of a suggestion than anything else. Cut all the patterns in your package. It's not essential, but it does save time in the end. If you're like me, sometimes you buy a pattern and you find that you don't really like all of the styles that they have, but you may like 3 or 4. So I end up cutting just maybe, you know, number 1 and number 2 are A and B, as the case may be. Like this particular one, it has 3 different styles, and I'm more inclined to go with the ones with the sleeves. So I may or may not cut this guy. And in some cases, they all have the same base. It's just it would be a different sleeve type, a different pattern for the sleeve. Like that sleeve would be a little different, and this sleeve would be a little bit different. And the base of this dress is the same as the rest. So in a case like that, it doesn't really matter. But there are patterns out there obviously that have different sleeves and they have different bodice types and what like that. So you just wanna try. If you're really, into it and very anal and whatnot, you can do that. Personally, I don't do it, but I find that I'm trying to start that now. That way, when I really want to do a pattern, I don't have to sit down and worry about, oh, I have to go cut this pattern now. And sometimes you're feeling really lazy and you don't want to do it. So it usually works really well. So those are my tips for before you begin to sew. And I'm gonna go down the line. I'm gonna go to cutting, tips on cutting, and then I'm gonna go to tips on stitching, and then I'm gonna go and probably do some general tips just to make sure that the videos are nice and small and you can jump to the section that you really want to see. So I'm Randy Crafter, and I will see you in my next vid. Bye!